Ever have a day or even a week when everything seems to go wrong? You miss a deadline, there's a personal setback, and just when you think it can't get worse, boom, another hit. Here's the truth. Resilience isn't about powering through. It's about training your brain to adapt. And today, we're giving you 3 science-backed strategies to stay strong no matter what life throws at you. But first, we want to talk about what people get wrong about resilience. Dr. Teplow, what do people get wrong about resilience?
I think you said it, that we think about it's powering through, that we have to tough it out. And there's that saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. It is true that when that resilient people are able to maintain a sense of acting, they don't get paralyzed. But it doesn't mean because they're tough. And I think tough, we also think of, is equated with like knuckling, kind of, what's it called? White knucklehead, or, grit your teeth, and just get through it. And that, if you just do that physically, I mean, just do it right now, you feel all tight. So you're not open to possibilities, and it's easy to get very tunnel vision. So people who are truly resilient are more flexible, adaptable, and they do act. They take action in the service of their values, and they are tough because they can withstand adversity. But it's there's that metaphor of what's really tough is the grain plant that the wind comes and it just waves in the wind versus being toppled, and that's really what resilience is: being able to go with the flow, bend with whatever is happening, but keep moving forward.
Yeah, not standing stiff and being, like you said, rigid about I'm going to make through this.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. The difference between, it's flexibility, adaptability versus rigid. And there's only one way to get through it. And I think that people who are not resilient get into trouble, either paralyzed or doing things that are unworkable or don't serve their values or produce the outcome, because they're very narrow-minded in what is possible. We got to do it this way. If that way doesn't work, then you can't just keep pushing it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You got to try something else. And people who are not resilient often get stuck at that point.
Yeah, it reminds me of the term anti-fragile. I can't remember the author of the book, Anti-Fragile, because you actually get better when you are able to be adaptable, and that you build your system or your program around being able to be stronger when it's along.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that also, if people can think about that, is that being resilient means anti-fragile, that you can withstand challenges in a way.
Not just bouncing back, but coming back stronger.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and resilience doesn't necessarily mean that you bounce back, because some things that challenge us and really can throw us for a loop can knock us down temporarily. We can get back up. We may not be able to return to normal, but we can move forward pursuing goals that are important to us, that reflect our values. So, if somebody has a tragic accident and is paralyzed, they can't go, they may never walk again. But those who are resilient, who've experienced that, can move forward in a way that's meaningful for them. So the goal or the outcome is the question we ask is, how do we have rich, meaningful lives, no matter what we're doing?
So let's talk about how we build this flexible strength and these 3 proven techniques that we are going to share. And we're going to start with the first one, which is a shift from the why me to the what's next mental framing, and how our brains love problem solving more than feeling stuck. How do we do it?
Absolutely. So so often when people get stuck, it's the why me. And Marty Seligman, author of Positive Psychology, talks about 3 factors that contribute to people getting stuck. One is making things personal. They always do it to me. One is pervasive. Everyone says, I'm a loser, or everything, that kind of word, everything, nothing goes my way. That's pervasive. And then permanent, always or never. So I could never do the
Catastrophizing
thing.
that comes up.
Yeah. Catastrophizing in those very specific ways. So if you catch yourself going, why does this always happen to me? Then you just always has made it permanent, and me is personal. So one thing to train yourself is to avoid that permanentizing. It's make it specific, describe what's happening in vivid detail and now. So I don't always screw up X. Right now, I spilled the milk or whatever it is, so that you've constrained whatever it is that's going wrong for you. And it's
This
not
time frame, this right now.
exactly. It's about right now. It's what is the behavior rather than you. I'm not good with numbers. No, I just made a mistake. Reverse the numbers on that phone number that you gave me or whatever it is, but it's stay specific, focus on the behavior, and don't expand to interpret or label or pathologize.
And what do you mean by pathologize?
What I mean by pathologize is make the mistake and characterize that as in some way that you're diseased or there's some kind of permanent character flaw. So if I, knocked over the milk, to pathologize is I'm clumsy and there's something wrong with me. That's pathologize versus
Versus what?
I wasn't paying attention. I knocked over the milk today.
Yeah, we just finished a quest on procrastination, which was interesting because lots of people that took the clients that took our quest on procrastination would say, I'm a procrastinator. That's where we started at. Many of them saying, I'm a procrastinator. And that's kind of the pathologizing there a bit, I think. And what we looked at is how to distance yourself from that as I'm someone who procrastinates sometimes in certain instances. And even naming that procrastination, like the procrastination pickle or something that is kind of funny, but it just externalizes it, names it.
Yeah, that's right. That externalizing is, you hit the nail on the head. So to become more resilient, we have to recognize when we're falling into those patterns of characterizing ourselves based on our pathology or on our deficits or shortcomings or failures or whatever, and instead describe it for the behavior that it is at the time the behavior is happening. It's today that I, spilled the milk or whatever. And also externalized by it's not me. It's the problem. The problem's the problem. Not me is the problem. And so you can, as you said, we can use language to do that. Even call your whatever that, behavior pattern that you did that time or that you notice is creeping up. I get that tongue-tied. Oh, it's Tommy tongue-tied is haunting me or making me not speak very clearly, and have fun with it. Again, that it distances you from your problems. It allows you to see yourself with more objectivity. And when you're having fun, it allows you to be more open to new ideas.
So it's the why me to what's next. So it's definitely externalizing it and changing the time to the specific moment that you're in, but it's also about moving forward, doing something next.
Right. And so the question is, what do I really care about? And what do I care about? Who do I want to be in this world, in this situation? How do I want to see myself? And how do I want to be seen? And I think that when people I'm thinking about kind of the opposite of resilience is just acting. And often if got that narrow mind, we're really tunnel vision. We act in ways that aren't very, very effective, aren't workable. We stay stuck because we're thinking about what we need to do rather than who we really are in these challenging situations. So I'm thinking about, if you have an interpersonal conflict with somebody at the office, you're in a meeting and somebody says something that's nasty. People can. It happens. We're human. Instead of reacting, I want to, and that is a challenge, right? So if I'm resilient and I adapt, I can think, well, wait, who do I want to be? How do I want to be seen? I want to be seen as somebody who has integrity, who can be respectful, even in the face of conflict. And that informs my behavior.
And I think that something you just said about, it gets you into that action, gets you into that narrow mindset, I think leads us into our second item, that strategy for how to make resilience work for you. And that's to regulate before you react. And this is about managing your nervous system. So I was actually curious, are you feeling any sluggishness this week, Dr. Teplow?
You mean because of daylight savings time?
Yes, exactly. So it's affecting your sleep a bit. Then obviously, that has an effect on your nervous system, which makes it a little bit more challenging to be resilient, because you have that when stress hits, because you are much more easy to have that immediate reaction. And so, that with this nervous system, like, how do we manage that in a way that helps us get out of that quick, I need to do something, narrow-minded thinking?
Yeah, one thing is to be aware. And there are lots of ways to train yourself to be aware. There's mindfulness practices, meditation. One thing is just to stop. Even if you set your watch every hour and say, stop. What do I notice? Take a breath. Feel yourself get grounded and say, what am I noticing? So just being aware of where you're at is a first step to regulate instead of react.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about breathing.
Yeah, no, as I say, and then that opens up a whole lot of opportunities for you, whether that's, to physically do something like dropping your shoulders or release tension in your jaw, which is something I have to do all the time, or taking a deep breath, or doing a breath work protocol. I mean, it just opens up a lot of ideas, and it's really about picking one that resonates for you.
Right, absolutely. And and it starts with be aware, and then do something. And it doesn't have to be a lot, and you don't have to be good at it. I think that's another thing, just to recognize and appreciate that we're really not talking about strengths per se. We're talking about what is workable, what works for you. So when we talk about be aware, I say, there are mindfulness practices that help you be more aware. You don't have to be sitting on your cushion for half an hour. You don't even have to be good at it. Just have to use that. I'll put that in quotes. Take a breath. Let yourself settle and say, what am I noticing about myself right now? Go inside your body. Are there any places that are tight? Oh, my jaw, or my shoulders are up to here. Say, relax.
We had a client that was having a trigger with their desk mate or their coworker nearby, and that we went through this exercise to look at something that would work for them. Maybe the breath work wasn't theirs, or some of these movement exercises wasn't theirs. And what they came up with is that there was a place in the office, which was like under the stairs, I think, that no one goes to. When she was noticing this feeling come up for her, that's a place that she could go to recenter. And there's something that she came up with that was only unique to her environment and for her that worked.
Yeah. And this is, how do you find what works? It's not, you already know what works. And that's kind of a funny thing to say. Well, how do I know what works? Because you're not always reacting. Sometimes you don't react as quickly or as, severely, or let's say inappropriately or unworkably. Sometimes you really do exemplify resilience, even if it's just a little bit. So that's where I call finding the gold nugget already in your past. When are you able to be a little more flexible? When's a time where you caught yourself saying, or you recognize in retrospect, yeah, he was adaptable. And that's where you can find those times that were easier for you to manage challenges and think about, and if I were to do that again, what would I be doing?
I also want to bring up something here around this regulate before you react. Is in a team environment, or even just a two-person team or family, when someone is reacting and not noticing that they're reacting, and they're going into this what next narrow-minded step that's really about the doing without considering what their values are, is to be able to, co-regulate is the term, but be able to sit with that calmness until that person is able to calm down and come back and be able to notice for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And, as you said that, it made me think, well, how do you do that? And it occurs to me that it's about mindset. I mean, there are lots of factors, but one is mindset. So when somebody is really going off the rails, how do you have presence, the presence of mind to collect yourself, be there in a state that you want to be, that is regulated while this person is reacting, to help them come back to present and grounded. And it occurred to me that one tip is to be curious, because we all have the judging mind and evaluating mind. What's happening? What are they? It's just stop, look, be curious. Even if it's like, wow, they are reacting. What's their face doing? What do I notice about what their body's doing when they're reacting? Oh, they do this. They get all tight. Just be curious and note. And I think that also helps us not personalize, and helps us see ourselves in the context of that, or put ourselves in a place where we can be more effective within a context that's challenging.
Well, I think that leads us great into the third of our resilience strategies that work, which is to find small wins or times when we talked about this already. Find small wins or times when we are able to take a moment to be centered and amplify those times. Like the example I just gave, where the client knew that this area in the office was a place where there was an opportunity to be centered and re-regulate and notice what was happening. That's something that they could keep going back to.
Absolutely. So often we just discount, or we minimize, or we don't even notice when we're doing things that do foster being effective. Had this amazing experience where working with a therapist who was doing phone counseling, and her client was yelling at her, was really abusive. And the counselor, or the therapist, said she feels really kind of ashamed, but it really set her off. And she ended up just saying, I can't talk now. We'll talk when you're, calmer. And they ended the conversation. Then the therapist said, and I was so upset that I had to go out walking. I walked for an hour, and then I called my mom, and then I got back to the office, and I was finally able to work. And she focused on what she wasn't doing, but I'm so, upset that he set me off. And so that was her focus, and that's the negativity bias, rather than saying, wait a second, how did you know that, to go out to walk? How did, what occurred to you that, to call your mom? Because, and that how did you know that she would be helpful? And when you did get, how did you figure out that you had enough of a walk, and that however long you were walking would enable you to come back and get back to work? Whoa. And she did not recognize the thing that she was doing.
So all those items, like be even noticing I need to get off this call because I'm not able to manage right now. I had to go for that walk, to call our mother, and to even know when I'm done with that walk. Yeah, you're right. Those are all great resilience skills the person was exhibiting, but because of our negativity bias, she wasn't recognizing those. And then you walk away from the situation completely different. That like, oh, I was able to manage through that, rather than, oh, I'm so upset with myself that I wasn't able to do that one thing on the phone call. No, you did all the good things you needed to do to make it through.
Right. And then the question is, this is a kind of sneaky question, is, we often think, well, what can I do now? And here's the kind of sneaky question, because you're creating the solution without even having to say, well, what do I do now? Or what's the first step? For her, it was, and so suppose that person, what kind of person does that tell you are? That you can get off the phone in a way that is respectful. You can set boundaries, hold them, and that you have a way to calm yourself down. You can make social connections that help you, and that you are able to get back to work. What does that say about the kind of person you are? What does it say about the skills you have and the capability you have? And when that person shows up on the next call with that client, what will you be seeing? And that is, oh, I call it the sneaky, is because she doesn't even have to plan what she's going to do next. She has to fully embrace who she is already.
I love that. And I think that's a perfect place for us to wrap up, because, what I want to say is that this sneaky little questions that you're asking, this is what is at the heart of our resilience mastery quest that we have coming up. And we'll put a link to be able to sign up for that or learn more about that in the show notes here. And that we also have a 29 Laws of Resilience that we want to offer you, which you can download and link in the show notes as well. And if this was helpful, hit the like or subscribe or share. These are all helpful, obviously, for the algorithm. And we talk about solution-focused strategies like this every week. And if you want to learn more about our unique solution-focused approach, book a complimentary coaching session at staminalab.io. That's staminalab.io. And put any questions or comments below. Thank you, Dr. Teplow.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Until next time, remember, you are your own lab, you are your own experiment, and you are your own best coach. Be well.